Forbidden Door this Sunday in Long Island, but has this event lost its spark?
And on Smackdown, Jacob Fatu makes a wild debut.
It's time to roar around the ring. All right, as I mentioned, Forbidden Door, Sunday night, pay-per-view, AEW. It's officially AEW New Japan crossover. At least that's how it's promoted. MLW is involved now. It's a whole thing. Again, Sunday night, Long Island. We'll get to the matches and predictions in a moment. I want to start this, though, by asking you, given everything, now that we're, 3 years into this concept of Forbidden Door, and given everything that we've seen AEW do over the years in terms of other companies, and now other companies working with other companies, not even including AEW, you feel like this concept of Forbidden Door has kind of lost its steam?
A little bit, considering even that like Tony Khan kind of owns the Forbidden Door now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can only sign so many people exclusively to AEW contracts to where you just kind of like negate the whole purpose of this show. But, I mean, it's still cool to see, especially for those of us that aren't like overly familiar with the talent from Japan.
Sure.
Or CMLL or MLW.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's still... The concept of working with other companies isn't the problem. I guess it's the pay-per-view, right? Because it feels like we get this all year long. Right? Like the guys of CMLL and MLW were just feuding with Blackpool Combat Club in like October.
They had like a whole like 8-man match or something.
Yeah, and like weeks and weeks of consistently showing up on Collision and Rampage, and then every now and then someone from Japan's coming over. And I don't have a problem with those crossovers happening. It just feels when Forbidden Door first became a thing, it was the one time of the year that we got to see AEW working with, New Japan, these names crossing over. And of course, there's so many names in AEW that have a history with everyone in New Japan or used to be in New Japan. And now those names are just being signed by AEW, right?
Right. It kind of takes away that, like the luster from the event itself.
Well, let's remember the names, the big names that made Forbidden Door really cool. That like, oh my God, they're going to be on American TV on pay-per-view. Will Ospreay, in AEW. Jay White, in AEW, right? The IWGP Heavyweight Champion is Jon Moxley, who's in AEW.
In AEW.
You know what I mean? So I don't have an issue with the crossovers. That's not the problem. It just does take away from what the point of Forbidden Door is supposed to be.
Right. It's like if WWE was signing TNA wrestlers to WWE contracts and then calling it a Forbidden Door show.
Right.
It's like, well, they work for you, though, so it's not really.
Well, I think part of it, too, and this part's not their fault, but part of it was back then, again, 3 years ago when Forbidden Door started, they were really the only main company working with other companies.
Right.
Now, and we've talked about it on previous episodes, and we've all seen what WWE has done with TNA, right? In the Royal Rumble, NXT and TNA working together consistently. Big names, Joe Hendry, titles coming over. Yep. Jordan Grace, competing for the women's title. It's just, it takes away from what the point of Forbidden Door was supposed to be, and it kind of goes to the idea of Tony Khan kind of just doing things, right? Without a purpose.
Right.
Because the idea of Forbidden Door was supposed to be, watch out, you never know who's going to show up, and hey, we're going to be working with these other companies, but now on a random Wednesday Dynamite, you're bringing New Japan guys over to be in an 8-man tag match or a battle royal.
To face Jericho,
by the way. Yeah. You know what I mean? And again, like that has made AEW cool for a while, but I kind of compare it to when ECW One Night Stand came out, right? The first one's so cool because we hadn't seen ECW in a while. Obviously hadn't seen the Arena in a while,
right.
Paul Heyman in that light in a while. But then after the second year, and then the third year, when ECW just became a weekly TV show, it's like, okay,
yeah,
it
loses something different, something rebellious, what ECW was, something out of the norm, and something not regular like we saw with the initial Forbidden Door concept. It's effective and it's cool. Something's cool and effective until it gets co-opted.
Sure.
When it becomes a thing, okay, now we're going to make this a thing now. It's like, okay, well, now it's not cool anymore because you're kind of making it like an annual event.
Yes.
And it doesn't have that same sort of surprise spontaneity to it.
Well, and as the years go on, it gets further and further away from what the original concept was.
Right.
Just like with ECW, we saw a bunch of extreme matches. We saw a bunch of the old ECW legends come back for matches and stories and all of that. And then when ECW became a thing, a weekly TV show, we're getting wrestlers we don't even know. It's not extreme anymore. It's not in the ECW arena anymore. It doesn't even have the ECW look anymore. And that's where you're seeing with AEW, where it's like, and we'll get to this match in a moment, world title match is AEW versus AEW.
Yeah.
By the way. And then you have Jericho and his crew are facing Samoa Joe and his crew. Like, at least the challenge is out there. That's AEW versus AEW. So now we're getting further and further away from what the Forbidden Door concept was supposed to be, but we're still promoting it as AEW New Japan Forbidden Door.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I mean, it's because they're not delivering that.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's kind of watered down, the initial effect of it.
Yeah, and I think that's where you gotta. I think moving forward, depending on how many pay-per-views they want to have, if there's a number that they want to stick with,
right.
If you want to have a pay-per-view in June, I think you gotta come up with a new concept next year. I don't even think you use the Forbidden Door name, even if you don't have the AEW New Japan, sell to it. I don't even think you use that name because we all know in wrestling what the term Forbidden Door is supposed to mean.
What it alludes to, yeah.
And what it alludes to. So if you keep that name, even if you're not promoting, hey, we're crossing over, we're still going to feel like this is a watered-down version of what was once a very cool idea.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I feel like the stories, and not that the matches and stories that we have going into aren't good, but it's not even about who's coming over from where. They haven't even promoted it necessarily in a way where it's like, oh, there's invasions, there's this, there's that. Like, it's just the regular stories that we get going into pay-per-views.
Not only that, but if you look up and down the match card for the show, it almost seems like an AEW sweep.
Yeah.
So,
that's what it should be, right?
Right. So it really just kind of takes that like surprise element out of it, because it's like, oh, okay, we have to do this show again this year, and
Yeah.
But
yeah, and I feel like when you have an AEW sweep, it's like, all right, cool, you featured other companies, but they all got blown out.
Yeah.
So great, thanks. Like we're just like trying to put AEW on top here, or book AEW on top.
Right.
And that's where you're going to lose relationships with other companies if you're just bringing our guys over to make you guys look good.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Let's get to the world title match. Will Ospreay is challenging Swerve Strickland. We kind of mentioned it a couple weeks back, and we just mentioned AEW versus AEW here. Will Ospreay just winning his international title from Roderick Strong last month, and now getting a world title shot. Before we get to the prediction, let's talk about the story behind it, which has really just been, and it's known, they've done podcasts together, that Swerve and Ospreay, they have a history together, they're friends. They've talked about that on TV. And up until this point, we haven't seen one guy really take the role of the heel over the other. Are you good with this kind of friendly rivalry heading into this match?
I'm good with it. I think it has to develop into something else eventually, and I think it will. Yeah. Not jumping into the prediction of the match, but I think it will. I think you can't just have, oh, hey, we're buddies, let's just go see who's better than the other, because that always leads to something else. That
type of story is only good for one match, right?
Right.
Or like at least one like level of the story.
That kind of story usually works best in like a tournament match or a qualifying match, where you can kind of be like, all right, it was a one night thing, we'll sweep it aside, whatever, you won, or I was better, you were better. Not a whole, hey, I'm going to challenge you for your title as friends, because there's going to be a beef that comes from that.
Yeah, I think, and this is the perfect story with how over Will Ospreay is, and this isn't me giving my prediction yet either, because I think this is the route I would go no matter who wins at the pay-per-view. This is where Swerve goes back heel.
Yes.
I really think that. But I wouldn't even call it heel. Heel for the story, but you're still going to have people who support him, because you had people, this is why they made him champion. This is why they kind of try to push him as a babyface. You had people supporting him heavy, even though he was technically a heel.
Right.
I mean, the dude, remember, just a few months ago, was in Adam Page's...
threatening to kidnap a baby.
In his house. And
it's hard to make a 180 from that. So
And Swerve, and this is just what he does well. He plays that heel well. He has that vibe. Is Prince Nana or not, as great, as funny, as fun as that is with the dance, that's not him.
Well, if he attacks Prince Nana, that's the full.
Oh, that's the full.
That's the full heel turn.
Even with Prince Nana doing that, I don't even care if he stays with Swerve or doesn't.
Yeah.
That's not Swerve doing that. And that's what they work because they're so different, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like we've talked about it, his entrance with how stoic he is, while Prince Nana is dancing like an idiot
And you
behind
spoke
him and
to
around
Swerve
him.
about that yourself.
Yes.
To ask him how he kind of deals that, because you or I would break out laughing.
Yeah. He's. I don't even look at him. I don't even look at him.
Probably the best approach is don't even look at him because you're going to start laughing or at least
Yes.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing. As fun as Prince Nana is, that's not Swerve. That's not his personality. That's not him doing it. He doesn't give into it. He doesn't smile. He doesn't do any of that. Swerve plays a better heel. And even though we use the term heel, I don't need him to come out and beg for people to boo him. Right?
No.
I just don't need babyface promos. I don't need friendly rivalries. Like I said, no matter who wins this match with him and Ospreay, I'd have him take out Ospreay after the match or on the Dynamite after, whether he's champion or not. You know what I mean? I think this is because Will Ospreay is so babyface, because he is so over with everything he's done. This is the perfect guy there's nobody that could support Swerve taking out Ospreay.
I agree.
You know what I mean? And that would put Swerve back in that level of like, badass champion or not, top of the card,
especially if he tries to justify why he had to do that. It's just, it's kind of like that delusional like villain thing of I have my reasoning, it only makes sense to me because I'm the bad guy kind of deal.
Right.
Versus, like you said, against Ospreay, who's like 99.9% beloved by the fans. It would really be a tough sell. You're going to make him an instant heel, whether or not he wants to be.
Who do you got winning this match?
I think we're going to see some shenanigans. I think Swerve retains.
Shenanigans in what way? Involving what?
Involving the Don Callis family, involving Swerve maybe doing something underhanded to retain his title, maybe some kind of... It could be a number of things. I say that because we got a show in Wembley coming up.
Yes.
I feel like if you're going to crown him, that's where you crown Ospreay.
It's funny you say shenanigans. You are very good during the show of like shifting my opinion, even if it's not like your opinion, but like not only do we have
I do
Wembley,
what I can.
Yeah, you're doing great. Not only with Wembley,
right?
Remember we got Blood and Guts coming up in July.
Yes,
and we've already seen the confrontation between the Bucks and Swerve, and the Bucks trying to bring Swerve over. I'm not saying Swerve's going to do that, but this is a very dangerous thing for either one of these guys to take a loss right now. This might be whether it's the Don Callis family, which is an Ospreay story,
right,
or a Young Bucks Elite thing, which could be everyone's story. Why not the Elite just completely destroy this match? And that's how they end. As of now, they are not booked for Forbidden Door. None of them are.
The Bucks aren't.
Okada isn't, right?
Just Jack Perry. That's it.
Right. So you could have these guys come and just a run-in after a great match. Let Swerve and Ospreay put on, because these guys are going to put on a great 20, 25 minutes. And after that, a run-in, and they could just destroy this match. And that just kind of, because remember, we have a team AEW.
Yeah.
And we talked about it last week. I think it's very important to feature all your big names, and this is a perfect way to have Swerve and Ospreay want to be in Blood and Guts against Team Elite. Now, if someone's going to take a loss, Ospreay's got to take the loss.
He has to. He has to take the loss here. I
think it's the perfect time. It's a perfect way for Swerve and his title reign to be shown that we're taking it seriously. We talked about that a lot with Damian Priest in the world title in WWE. I think that you do this with Swerve here.
Yeah.
Ospreay just won his international title. He can focus on that, and at the same time, you don't want anyone to look too untouchable.
Right.
And he's been very untouchable since he's been in AEW. This is a perfect route, whether it's shenanigans or not. Put on a great match, fall just short, but I'll be back to come for that world title and still look strong because he's still got gold around his waist.
Absolutely.
It's a good way to do it.
Yep.
Speaking of Wembley, speaking of the world title picture, the Owen Hart Cup has already kicked off leading into Forbidden Door, and Forbidden Door is going to kind of feature that as well. And we're going to see, this is a crossover. We're getting a crossover match. The winner of this tournament is going to get a world title shot at Wembley Stadium, and that's the big sell of this tournament. Bryan Danielson, his final run, no idea when the hell that's going to end, going against Shingo Takagi in this one. Again, New Japan, AEW, crossover. The odds that Bryan Danielson ends up in a world title match at the end of this tournament, what do you think?
I think they're pretty good. I don't think he'd win a world title, but if we're on his last bit of run here, his last run as a full-time performer, you got to include some big match situations like that, be it him in a multi-person match or him getting in a one-on-one, whatever it may be. I don't see why not. He's a much celebrated, much decorated performer.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do that for him?
I think this is the one time because Bryan Danielson, since announcing his final run, and again, we don't have a date of when that's going to be, but by the time Wembley hits, it's going to be over a year since he said that. He has time and time again talked about matches and titles and opportunities that he's wanted, and he's fallen short. And I don't hate that, but I think at some point you got to make him look strong. And I think you have a similar thing with Ospreay, with Swerve. I think Danielson needs to win this tournament. I think Danielson at any point falling short, whether it's in the first round here or even if he gets all the way to the finals and loses, I think that is a bad look for his final run. And I think he could, in his mind, a final match at Wembley Stadium in a world title match is a perfect way to go out.
No, I agree.
I don't think you promote it that way going in, but I think him and Swerve headlining Wembley is the route I'd go.
No, a lot of performers, it's a thing where it's like, well, on my last run, or I'm going to be retiring soon, so I'm going to put everybody over, and I'm not going to win any titles. That's fine if that's the route you want to go. For a performer of his caliber, I think even if it's just a one-off thing where he wins it and then retires, or calls it a career, whatever it is, I have no problem with it.
Right. Yeah, no, I think the idea in wrestling, and it kind of went away years ago, that just because someone's on their final run, we have to put them over. We have to put a title on them before they're gone. We have to have them go out on a high note and win. I mean, God, Kurt Angle lost to Baron Corbin at WrestleMania. Let's remember that. I'm not defending that decision, but the idea in wrestling that it's your final match, your final run, you have to go over, that's kind of long gone.
Yeah, it was more of an idea of like, let's maximize their stardom before they call it a career, which is like, a perfect example is Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
He won, one world title when he came back in 2002?
And then
never won it again. He competed for it.
And he was in wrestling full time for 8-9 years
but
after that.
He also competed in the mid-card and made those guys look great. He still had big legendary matches, Ric Flair, all the matches with Triple H, whatever. You can maximize a person's name value and their legacy without having to throw every championship on them.
Yeah, no, I think Danielson, and we've had the chance to chat with him on the show. Right. He has that mindset of making others look good, and I think he's the perfect guy to make Swerve's world title run look good. I think Swerve holds that title all the way to Wembley. He headlines that show with Danielson, and just like with Ospreay, puts on an amazing match. Perfect way for Danielson to go out, and a perfect way for Swerve to be shown as the guy, the face, as you've talked about since he's been champion. Yeah. He hasn't really been showcased as the face, the guy, the most important thing on our company. He's been
treated kind of like a reminder. Oh, yeah, by the way, here's our world champion.
By the way, but back to the elite.
You don't see Ospreay winning that title in Wembley.
No, I don't see him winning it before Wembley or at Wembley.
Oh, wow, okay.
We got to remember Ospreay has a title, and I think Ospreay defending that title at Wembley is this year's moment. If you want, I'm sure they're going to keep going back to Wembley.
He can main event Wembley with that title, too.
Potentially, but I wouldn't want the world title to not main event there. I get it's Ospreay.
You wouldn't, but he's so over. That crowd's going to be all about him. We've seen situations, big match shows, where the Intercontinental title has main evented, before over the world title. I mean, the one that was in 92 SummerSlam, Bret Hart and the British Bulldog.
Sure.
Great match. So it's just... those things are not unprecedented. It can happen. It just depends on which story means more at the time.
Well, and I think Ospreay defending his title at Wembley Stadium against, say, if they can get a Ricochet, and those two put on a show, that's a perfect way for him, to be showcased at Wembley while Swerve does this thing with Bryan Danielson. So you got Danielson winning his first round match at Forbidden Door?
I think he wins it,
Yeah, no. Sure. Whether or not he wins the tournament, I think he's got to at least make a run. MJF is in competition, of course, in Long Island. Hometown boy.
Yeah.
He's taking a Hechicero from MLW before we get, and CMLL. Before we get to the match specifically, we did see a face-off between MJF and Will Ospreay. How soon do you want to see that match?
Not very soon.
Okay.
Don't rush into that. Yeah. I feel like there's individual stories that I say for MJF, but more so for Will Ospreay to tie up before we can fully focus. Because when we have that feud, I don't want all these other names being involved in it. I want just the two of them, really. And so Will Ospreay has this going on with Swerve, or this going on with the Don Callis family, or that. Let's tie up those loose ends first.
Right. Honestly, I mentioned Ospreay and Ricochet at Wembley. I wouldn't mind Ospreay and MJF at Wembley, right? Like, if you want to showcase Ospreay in a big way, MJF obviously is a huge star. That's a good way to put it. And for MJF, look, we can beat a dead horse. That's a horrible saying, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
When it comes to talking about why MJF's not focusing on the Undisputed Kingdom, where's Adam Cole, right? That is all valid. Yeah. That is all true. But I guess to get away from that, because up until this point, he had a match with Roosh. He's having a match with Hechicero. There is no sign of Undisputed Kingdom.
Zero.
So to get away from them, I do appreciate that MJF is focused in on the mid-card right now. I do appreciate that they did not bring him in and put him in the world title picture right away. And they have not shown any signs of doing that anytime soon. And I think to keep him important, but in the mid-card, again, Ospreay has that title. Mm-hmm. An international title feud between Ospreay and MJF instantly makes that title a lot more important than it has been in the past.
I agree.
And I think for MJF and Ospreay to have that match, it doesn't need to be a world title match. You get these two one-on-one at Wembley while still letting Swerve main event the show. You're getting all your big stars a big moment in one night on that big stage. You know what I'm saying? So I think that could be a Wembley match. It does not have to be for the world title. I think everyone, when they think MJF Ospreay, they think world title. No, it does not need to be for the world title.
There's matches that don't need to be. I mean, look at the other companies, CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. You don't need a title with that. It's all about the story. It's all about the grudge. It's about the promos back and forth. You don't necessarily need a championship involved in every big name match.
Well, and this is the first time that MJF has really been around consistently since Ospreay's been full-time in AEW. Yes. And I really, now that you have a similar thing going, at least roster-wise, as WWE has. You have a lot of big names. I really need some stories behind these matches. We know they're great matches, right? We know if you put MJF and Ospreay on a card, we're going to love it. I need some story behind it to give it that. We know CM Punk and Drew McIntyre is a great match, but that doesn't stop them from telling that story.
You need the story because you can't, and I know AEW gets a lot of flack for just, we're going to put a great match in the ring. Well, that's fine. It's great to see, but make me care about why I'm watching this match. Right. Don't just say, oh, this week on Dynamite, this week on Collision, you're getting this. Why am I getting this?
Right. Yeah. MJF winning, hometown boy?
Yeah, he's winning.
Yeah, he's got to get the win in Long Island. Mercedes Moné is going for another title for title with Stephanie Vaquer for the NJPW. This is a long, strong women's title. It's a long thing. The TBS title is also involved. It is title for title. Do you like the idea of putting another title on Mercedes Moné right now?
I don't. I'm not really crazy about it, but I think they will just because I feel like they feature her as like the biggest female superstar in the company. Yeah. Like over Toni Storm, so I could see them doing that. I could see her winning this match and carrying two champions. Now, how you progress from that on, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I got two thoughts on this. To rush to my prediction, that would be I think she's winning here.
I do too.
And yeah. I agree with why they're going to make that decision. They're going to make that decision because, and I thought this about a week ago. With everything going on with the NBA Finals, the Boston Celtics, shout out to the Celtics. Sorry, Laker fan, getting that title. Mercedes Moné, of course, big Celtics fan. Right. Nobody markets AEW, female or male, top to bottom, better than Mercedes Moné does it. She is big parties, red carpets, sidelines of the NBA Finals, holding that TBS title.
That's true.
Nobody markets that company like Mercedes Moné does. And I think for that reason, I agree with why they want to keep pushing her.
Yeah.
I don't like it because your women's champion is Toni Storm. And her timeless character has been very over with the crowd. Everyone loves it. It has not gotten stale. No. They've done it. Honestly, they've handled her title run very well.
And this is before Mercedes Moné got to the company.
Correct.
Yeah.
And they've handled her title run very well with different challengers, stories, the Mariah May story, everything going on there, where the only thing they haven't done is made her feel like, just like we said with Swerve, the top of the card.
Right, exactly.
Because to this point, even though she's holding the mid-card title in the women's division, Mercedes Moné is treated, even though she's only been there for a couple months, as the top female.
And that's kind of the problem that I see like with Swerve and then with Toni Storm. It's just... You're supposed to be in that position. You're supposed to be the flag bearers. But because there's someone standing over your head where it's like, we kind of want to show them off more than you. But you're still our world champions. But, and I don't really like that. So I
think if you were going to treat Mercedes like this, you should have had her just come in and take that title off Toni.
Yeah.
That would have made more
Honestly,
sense
yeah.
because that TBS title could be making, that Willow-Chris Statlander feud that much more important with the TBS title involved. You could have put Toni and Mariah May in that
I
feud.
get why they wanted to do the whole Willow Monet thing. Like, I get it. But at this point, if this is what it's going to be, you should just have it. Yeah, to your point, you're right. You should just have her dethrone Toni Storm.
Is Mercedes winning here then?
Yes.
Yeah. No, again, I get why.
We're going the AEW sweep here. So
If
far.
we're going to AEW sweep, and that's kind of the route we're going to go, let's keep it going with the women. Toni Storm, we just talked about. Mina Shirakawa. Now, we got a couple of different stories being told with Toni Storm because Soraya's gotten involved. She's got a new faction going on with Anna Jay and Harley Cameron. But Mariah May, of course, everyone's kind of waiting on Mariah May to just be the star that she was before, or Toni to turn on her, whichever route. Which story is more intriguing there? Soraya back in the title or Mariah May?
For me, the Mariah May one, if I could say it properly, is more intriguing to me. Just because I feel like we've seen the back and forth with Soraya before.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we're putting a new twist on it. There's she has a faction. That's fine. But there's seeds that have been planted here with Mariah May. Now, and is she going to turn on Toni Storm? That whole thing. So I really find much more interest in what's happening there leading into this match. Yeah.
I do appreciate them, making Soraya a little more important just because she's one of those that we're not sure how much longer she's got left. And if you're going to keep her around,
right? They booked her very sporadic, where she was there and then she wasn't there, and then she's on TV and then she's gone for a while.
She's champion and then she loses and she's gone. Yeah, and then she was just doing some rampage
stuff. Which, come on. No one's really watching Rampage. Right, let's be real about it.
So, I do appreciate the idea to give her a faction, to get her back in the women's title picture. I like that. But, we talked about storytelling. To give AEW their nod, the storytelling with Toni Storm, Mariah May.
Yeah, the whole contract signing segment was great.
It was awesome. And Toni Storm's whole title run has been about her and Mariah May.
Yes.
Nothing against Serena Deeb or Thunder Rosa or Deonna Purrazzo.
They're all side players, though.
They're all side players because you're waiting on, is this the feud where Mariah's going to screw Toni? Yep. Or is Toni going to, do something to, put Mariah over the edge? But then every time you think that, Toni does something nice like making sure Mariah's in the tournament.
Yeah.
But again, what do you get out of winning the Owen Hart Cup? You get a title match at Wembley.
Yep.
Is Toni Storm really going to be okay with Mariah May winning that? So all these little seeds, the storytelling that has just been under the table for now, while Toni Storm's having match after match and quality match after match and feud for the title, I think that's gold.
And they're taking their time with it too.
Yeah, but that is the key. It's not just storytelling; it's taking your time with it. You can't tell me a story and then give me the payoff the next week. As frustrating as it is, make me wait. Make me wait weeks and months before that payoff happens.
So we have the same prediction here, I'm guessing.
Yeah, then Toni Storm has to retain.
Yes.
Because Toni Storm has to keep the title until Mariah May.
In order to make that happen. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's a Wembley match. I definitely.
For sure. That'd be great, yeah.
I definitely think that's a Wembley match. TNT title ladder match, Jack Perry. We kind of talked about this in the past. Konosuke Takeshita's in this match. They've added some high flyers. Leo Rush, Dante Martin. Jack Perry still?
I'm still going with him, especially because the Bucks aren't on the card. Neither is Okada. I feel like they somehow get involved in this match to help him win. He's my pick. He's walking. And then going into Blood and Guts, I think the Elite's going to have all just draped in gold.
That's it. First off, I appreciate Jack Perry's character. I really do. I think he has made the most out of a shitty situation with that CM Punk backstage feud and him going away.
He really turned it around.
He has turned it around into a huge, and keep in mind, this is a baby face a year and a half ago.
We're talking Jungle Boy.
Yes.
Everybody is in their different spots now, with that whole, coming out of that.
And now you got one of the most hated heels, and he plays it so well. I definitely want him to win it for that reason. I want him to win it to have the Elite with all the gold.
Yes.
Especially going into Blood and Guts.
You need that visual. Yeah.
That visual, the visual I always go to with a group like that is Evolution, way back in 2003.
That's exactly who popped in my mind.
Right?
And they're all heels, and they're all carrying gold, and it's just they got the company on lock.
Instantly that much more important. I know they're EVPs, but Jack Perry isn't. Okada isn't. Instantly that much more important.
But when you got it makes it so much more interesting, too, when you have the EVPs, the bosses of the company calling the shots, being unfair about it. It makes it much more interesting when you have the wrestlers going after them, a la McMahon Austin.
Right.
That kind of deal. So it's always more entertaining.
IWGP title match. This is AEW versus New Japan, IWGP title. Jon Moxley, Tetsuya Naito. Do you think Moxley is going over in New York?
I think this is the time for him to drop it so he can stop the back and forth.
Yeah.
and just focus on being an AEW exclusive wrestler. I mean, he's had it for a little while. I think it's time to drop it. Right now is a perfect opportunity.
I think it's a perfect way because you mentioned, at least in our predictions, in our brains, it's AEW sweep, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of AEW versus AEW matches. There's no New Japan versus, CMLL. There's no, inter-promotion matches for them.
Give New Japan their title back.
This is their title, right? Like, this is their moment of the pay-per-view. If this is still Forbidden Door featuring New Japan and they're still on that card and they're still on that poster, this is the perfect time to give them that moment.
Yep,
I don't care how, but it's the perfect time to give them that moment.
I agree.
And lastly, Orange Cassidy, Zack Sabre Jr., kind of a match just to have a good match on the card, right?
Difference in styles, and I'm sure it'll be okay.
Sure.
I'm going to say I'll have Zack Sabre Jr. going over here.
I'm going to have him go over, too. Yeah. I think Trent Beretta and the Don Callis family and that story with Orange Cassidy is a good way to have it. And, again, you don't want it to be AEW heavy, right? No. And the other stories, it makes sense, even outside of the AEW versus AEW matches. It makes sense for the AEW guys to go over. But this is there's no title on the line. There's no long-term that you have to worry about
even in a loss here, it doesn't damage Orange Cassidy. Like, he can... It's not like, oh, well, he lost. Now he lost all his momentum. He can't... It's like, no, it's fine.
Right. Let's get through some WWE headlines before we get out of here. You mentioned at the top of the show, Jacob Fatu.
Yes, sir.
Debuting on SmackDown. Joining the new Bloodline. We're about to find out. New Bloodline with Solo. Of course, Tama Tonga Loa. Took out Cody Rhodes. Took out Randy Orton. Took out Kevin Owens. The splash through the announce table. The spear through the barricade. Huge spots. Your thoughts on this debut?
This Samoan Tongan connection is insane. They all terrify me equally. But Jacob Fatu especially. Imagine this is your debut, and you're told you're taking out the 3 top baby faces on our roster, and you're putting the world champion through a table.
By the way,
on
a huge spot too.
You're doing this single-handedly.
Yes.
And you're looking. I mean, I got just from his explosiveness to the attack to his facial mannerisms were major Umaga vibes. I loved it. I thought it was perfectly done.
Triple H said on the Pat McAfee show earlier this week that game changer is the phrase they used. And you could tell in the tone of his voice, dude, I can't believe I got
even
this
the
guy.
way that the Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa were looking at him when they were raising the ones, kind of looking like,
oh, shit.
Okay, we got this guy in here now? Like, okay, this is... Yeah. We're off the rails a little bit here.
But that's perfect.
What you want.
This is what you want because you have a lot of people who are kind of side-eyeing the new Bloodline. Am I even entertained by this?
Yeah.
People don't realize that's how they want you to feel right now.
Jacob Fatu showing up definitely perked up a lot of ears, I think, and eyes and ears on him. Like, okay.
It does in a good way. And then you got a 6-man tag at Money in the Bank with Cody, Orton. Yeah. Now, I'm not sure who of the 3 of the new Bloodline, but you had to have Jacob Fatu as part of the trio that's in that match. This is just enough to make the new Bloodline seem that much powerful.
Yeah.
Nothing against Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, nothing against Solo, but there's just something that Jacob Fatu has, and we've talked about this before it even showed up, that the others do not. That intensity, that ability to do what he did to the top faces, and instantly make a group and a story feel that much more important.
The biggest over baby face in the company.
Right.
And they still have, I believe his name is Hikuleo out there.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're not done yet.
No. And down the line, whenever we have the OG Bloodline against the new Bloodline, you can't have it look like, well, why would Roman and the Usos lose to these guys? No. You need some intensity.
And I think they're doing that now. They're planning this is not Roman's Bloodline. This is like a much more violent, unhinged, undisciplined Bloodline. This is and in my mind, this is the Rock's Bloodline, but it may not be that. Whatever's going on here is not what Roman how he would have ran it.
Well, this is the first debut, nothing against Tama Tonga or Tonga Loa. That was still cool, and it was nice to see Solo getting a crew together. But it
was cool to see it live too, Tama Tonga.
Yes, and that Jacob Fatu moment though, this is the first one where you went, oh shit.
Yeah, it got real. Okay,
this is going to be serious
because he just established in that one debut, I'm a threat to everybody, including your world champion.
On Raw, Bo Dallas, Uncle Howdy, a segment one-on-one, face-to-face. Your thoughts on this segment to continue this story?
I think I share the sentiment of a lot of people where, just reading through comments and such, that it was emotional to watch it.
Yes.
Because they touched on, they didn't shy away from talking about Bray. And you had to. Why are we doing this angle? Why are you doing what Bray was doing as his brother? When he said, "Aren't you exploiting your brother's memory?" And his response was basically to the point of, I'm preserving his memory because otherwise you're just all going to forget about him. And I'm like, okay, I like this. I'm on board now. I still have my reservations about how they're going to do this long term.
Yeah.
But so far, I'm on board.
The reservations are about, and you mentioned it last week, we got to have a match at some point. Honestly, it's as simple to me as how are they going to wrestle and what they're wearing.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean?
Because eventually we got to see Loomis or Gacy or or Rowan. The mask has to come off at some point.
Or does it? Or can it stay on?
And not only that, like I said to you, when we just flick on the lights and they wrestle under the same lighting as everybody else, now they're just everybody else.
Yes. And that's...
So how... And I'm assuming the big brains at WWE have thought this through. They've had a sit down about this. What's our presentation going forward with this team, with this group?
Yeah, I don't think anyone expected them to talk about Bray Wyatt this soon, that up front, and I don't think anyone expected to see just straight up Bo Dallas on WWE TV.
Well, just the it was cool because you had him essentially talking to himself.
Yes,
but the split personality of reasoning with yourself of why you're doing what you're doing, and it was just I mean the presentation was really good.
Well, and it's another tribute to Bray because this is exactly what we saw with Bray Wyatt and The Fiend.
Yep,
we would see Bray Wyatt and The Fiend interact, not in the same room together, but that multi personality, right? And that's Bo Dallas doing the same thing. And again, Triple H has proven time and time again that dude pays attention to what is being said online, and if you're going to question something, he's going to answer it. Right, and of course that was the one. I don't want to call it a critique, but a question of like, okay, how is this going to work? This is just Bray Wyatt 2.0, so on. And Triple H just goes, we're going to answer that.
Yep.
And we're going to have Bo Dallas and Uncle Howdy answer that for you.
Matter of fact, we got a video for you.
Here you go. Right, and it was emotional.
Yeah.
It explains. And honestly, I would love to see this with each, not this exact segment, with each of these characters, because again, as cool as the creepy of it is, and scary, and all these fun little moments, whatever. When you put meaning behind it, it makes it that much more intense. And just like that, Uncle Howdy, after honestly going back to the Bray times, years of of this story being told for the last couple of years, now there's that much more meaning behind it.
I mean, it serves to not only expand the Bray Wyatt family universe, but it was so. What I took from it, at least, is Bo Dallas saying what a lot of fans felt. A lot of us have that emotional connection to Bray Wyatt because we were so invested in what he was doing. We wanted it to work even when we saw that it wasn't.
Yes.
So for us to be like, okay, well, he passed away. We just got to let it go now. Just forget about it. I don't want to forget about it because I really enjoyed Bray Wyatt's work. And so for someone to tell me or you or any other Bray Wyatt fans out there, well, he's gone now, so just pretend it never happened.
Right.
No, I kind of like what they're doing here because they're saying we're going to preserve his memory and we're going to keep going. We're going to continue his work, quote unquote.
Well, yeah, and it's just another example of we're not going to ignore what's being said, right? Like WWE blends, the worlds of reality and fiction, right? Yeah. And in reality,
especially
everyone's
now,
like,
they're not afraid to do it.
No,
which is great.
And in reality, everyone's like, this is just Bray. Why is this not? Is this just the Wyatt family again? Like, what? This is just Bray Wyatt all over again, and so on and so forth. And they're just going to address it, and they're going to do it in an emotional way that is instantly going to have you connect with these characters that much more. How do you feel about this group kind of haunting the Pat McAfee show? By the way,
I mean, I think it's you got to do these things. You want to kind of resist being too over the top with it. You don't want. You don't want them showing up on Good Morning America or something, but or maybe you do.
Maybe.
But I'm not gonna say no.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you have to do these things where they're not contained to a show. They're not contained to Raw. They're not contained to SmackDown. They're everywhere. Like it's just it's just a thing that happens now, and people, superstars are freaked out about it. Referees are freaked out about it. Backstage personnel freaked out about it. You have to present it that way.
Well, and I think it's presenting it in the way of this is very important. This is a very important part of our show. This is a big part of our show now. And to get it in front of national eyes, because now you got people in the sports world who just watch Pat McAfee's show just because they're sports fans and Pat McAfee fans on ESPN or YouTube, and they're going, what the hell just happened on Pat McAfee's show?
Cut out? What happened?
What the hell happened? And now you got people talking and now getting the explanation. And just like that, the casual wrestling fans or non-wrestling fans know who Uncle Howdy is and know who the Wyatt Six are, just like they know who John Cena is just because they've heard about him, right? And it's, again, the importance factor that this group needs. This isn't just a creepy thing that's just going to take losses and go away. Yeah. No, this is a very important part of the show, and we're going to put them on national TV multiple times in a week on ESPN and showcase what they're about. With the boss right there, by the way, because it happened with Triple H on the show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is how important they are. Love it. Bron Breakker, speaking of important, straight into an IC title match on pay-per-view against Sami Zayn. Is this the right time for him to be right into a title shot?
So, because of the way that Sami Zayn's title reign has been treated so far, I'm going to say yes. Everything Sami has done so far has been about Chad Gable. Yeah. And then about the Alpha Academy. And then about Chad Gable again. Right. And now it just seems like, all right, so nothing about your title reign other than you beating Gunther at WrestleMania was about you. Right. So if we're going to just keep this, he's just kind of randomly walking around backstage, nothing to do, give it to Bron Breakker. He's everywhere. He's doing everything. Bron
Breakker has something that we haven't seen since, at least in my opinion, since Brock Lesnar. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you that right now. Stars like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, John Cena, Cody Rhodes, these guys needed a couple years to figure out what, if not longer, right? Cody had to leave and come back. Drew had to leave and come back. Needed years and years to figure out what is your thing to get you to the top. Brock Lesnar showed up in 2002, and instantly everyone was like, this is the guy.
No character change needed.
Nope.
Austin had to go through a character. The Ringmaster. Yep. The Rock, Rocky Maivia, Flex Cavana. You get to a point where, this is what you're supposed to be.
This is it. From the beginning, we know what you are.
Been Brock Lesnar since day one.
Natural, just it came to you and you got it. And he was a champion. Yes, world champion, but a champion 4 months in, 5 months into him being on the roster.
The thing with that is you didn't disagree with it.
No.
And I think he beat The Rock, and you were still like, this is fine.
Yes. And Bron Breakker's in that same category. This dude showed up. He's got the look. He's got the size. He's got the ability.
He's got the family pedigree.
He's got the family pedigree, and that's part of it, yes. But, like, he has his why. He has his what. He has his everything, and he is a freak of an athlete.
The things this guy can do in the ring, he's not this gigantic dude, but his agility, his speed, off the ropes, the way he makes everything – every impact looks like it hurts.
Well, and Bron Breakker, I made the comparison to like Cody Rhodes, Cena, and Triple H and all that. They didn't have an NXT like Bron Breakker did. And obviously that plays a big role into all these guys in NXT. It's a big payoff for them, especially when they make it work. Bron has made it work. This makes sense. This is not too quick to put him in a title match, even on a pay-per-view. Yes, I'm still calling it a pay-per-view. Pleh. Speaking of plehs, Zelina Vega, Liv Morgan, world title match is on Raw. Should this be on Money in the Bank?
I almost want it to be on Money in the Bank because I feel like Liv Morgan as women's world champion is kind of taking a backseat to all the soap opera shenanigans. I want to I know she's the world champ, but I want to be reminded of that in a big match. Yeah. Now Zelina Vega is not I'm still a little confused as to why she cares so much about Dominic and all this, but whatever. I'll run with it.
The Rey Mysterio connections.
Well, there you go. But I really think that you got to put this on the pay-per-view because otherwise it's just why is Liv world champion? I know Rhea's injured, this, that, but the whole Dom thing is taking like front and center. I want to show me also that you're the champion too. Because Rhea kind of had that problem. Rhea had a lot more title defenses, but it was more of just her title defenses almost became secondary because she was always in the ring mixing it up in promos with the guys. Yes. And it was like, oh, by the way, she's the women's world champion too.
Yeah, I think Liv, because she hasn't had a title defense on pay-per-view, and this is the perfect time to do it, even if it's a kickoff show. Right. And I think the story behind it is worthy of it, right? That adds to why I feel like it should be on Money in the Bank, because it's one of the top stories on Raw.
As far as I'm concerned, aside from the Wyatt Six, it is the top story on Raw.
Yes. You know what I mean? Everything with the Judgment Day. I mean, how many segments did they get on Raw, right? Dude, it kept going back to it.
Just, think 2-3 years ago, Dominic Mysterio. When he was tagging with his dad. Did you ever think this was going to be a thing with him?
Babyface Dom.
Now he's like Little Eddie.
Little Eddie. He's really...
But Dominic is great in his role. He does really well.
This is Eddie Guerrero in his China era.
The Mamacita. Yeah, the whole thing.
But Eddie at that time did not have a Liv Morgan.
No.
Right? So it's just that extra layer. And that is, again, another reason why the whole story behind it, the match is whatever, Liv should retain, but the whole story and shenanigans around it belong on the pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
And that's why I feel like it needed to be on there. LA Knight, Logan Paul seem to be on their way to a SummerSlam match, but they're in a triple threat match. Money in the Bank qualifier with Santos Escobar. Are you okay with these two getting in the ring together before a payoff?
I'm fine with it because it could just serve to the build. You're not getting a one-on-one here. It's something that they kind of cost each other the opportunity, whatever it may be. It just serves to their bigger purpose of a match.
I think the only issue I have with it is just because Logan Paul has been treated as an attraction. He's only had one match on SmackDown. It was before Elimination Chamber. So to randomly throw him in that triple threat, I appreciate the unpredictability of it because I have no idea how this is going to play out.
Santos
is going to win.
I mean, look at how people have been winning.
But how much interaction are we going to see between these two in the triple threat? Is my point, right? Are they going to touch, or is it going to be Logan staying away and how is this going to be that unpredictability? I appreciate.
Yeah.
But with how much of an attraction Logan Paul has been treated as, I wish there was a little more. It's almost like the Stone Cold Steve Austin Brock Lesnar. I wish there was a build leading up to this match rather than just
on you.
By the way, graphic at the bottom of the screen.
You're getting this one.
Wait, they're in a match together next week? What's going on? Like out of nowhere. So I wish there was a little more push.
I definitely see Stone Cold side on that to this day. I don't agree with the leaving and walking out thing, but I definitely see why he was pissed. No, but Logan Paul, and maybe your way that you just presented it could be how they get around it. He doesn't really interact in the match. He might even I don't know. I don't want to say he doesn't care about qualifying.
Right.
Just
he might want to stay away from the Money in the Bank ladder match because he almost destroyed himself with Ricochet last year.
Yeah. Let's not.
He's like, it might be good.
But I don't hate that they're in the match together. I think there's gonna be kind of very little interaction.
Lastly, big announcement for Indianapolis. Speaking of Pat McAfee, they're getting Royal Rumble, and then over the next few years, they're also getting WrestleMania and SummerSlam.
Wow. Yeah.
Over the next few years, not all in the same year.
Initially I was like, in the same year?
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Yeah. So WrestleMania is in Vegas. They haven't announced when SummerSlam and WrestleMania is going to be there. We know SummerSlam in 2026 is going to be in Minneapolis. So
right.
I mean, it's a whole scheduling thing. First off, February 1st is Royal Rumble. Later Royal Rumble.
Wow.
Later WrestleMania. Are you good with that?
I'm good with it. It's gonna be weird.
It's gonna be weird. But here's the thing. Royal Rumble has been at the end of January recently. Yeah. So it's not really that much of a difference.
You're basically waiting a week.
Right. It's just seeing February at the beginning of the day.
Instead of this Saturday, it's next Saturday.
Right. Because now you got WrestleMania at the end of April, right?
But I think just because we've all of us have pretty much grown up with January as the Rumble.
Right.
And then you have February pay-per-view, and then you have WrestleMania in March-ish, April.
This is Triple H showcasing, hey, we always did it one way. We're doing things my way now. Right?
And the following year, we can probably go back to the way it was.
You
never know. You never know.
If it makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And then even just announcing one city is getting all these 3 events over the next few years, we've never seen an announcement like this.
Never.
Now, here's the thing. I get the Pat McAfee connection. I don't know that Indianapolis is a big enough city to get an announcement like this. I really don't.
Don't tell Pat McAfee or Caitlin Clark that.
I appreciate it, but I do appreciate it because Caitlin Clark thing, the Pat McAfee thing. Indianapolis is under that big, microscope because of those two. The sports world, the ESPN world, the Colts and the Pacers are just in the conference finals, but Indianapolis, because of Caitlin Clark and Pat McAfee, there's so much going on there, and Triple H is like, you know what, we're going to send everything there. So I get it for that standpoint. But to announce it the way they did, again, you tell one city you're getting the 3 biggest shows over the next few years. Well, that's a big deal.
You better hope your Pistons pick up Bronny James, because
that might get us a live show, bro.
You might get a Money in the Bank.
Shout out to Money in the Bank. You know what?
You can thank Bronny James for that.
We're gonna get Fastlane.
Hey, now.
Hosted by Bronny James.
Don't hate on Fastlane. There's been some solid main events.
Roar Around the Ring is available every week. Find us on YouTube at Roar Around the Ring. He's at Dude the Real Daryl Taylor. I'm Justin Valentine. Talk to you guys very soon.